You're recording now, so you can start whenever you're ready.
Okay, Ann, I think we are ready. Let's begin.
Okay. To go.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Strategic Planning Committee of the Town Council. Today is March 2nd, and the time is 7:04 p.m. And we are here to continue discussion of proposed goals for the town manager for the coming year. And we're meeting pursuant to an order of the Town Council, Order FY 21-031, Established Town Manager Goals, which was referred to this committee by the full council in February. This is our, I believe, fourth meeting on the subject. Noting that we have a quorum, I see that Councillor Wood is present, as well as Councillor Gallagher. And I will call the meeting to order now. And I would entertain a motion for the approval of minutes for February 10th.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for February 10th, 2021.
Thank you very much. And is there a second?
Second it, yep.
Thank you. And I vote in favor as well. It's unanimous. And the agenda calls for additional minute approvals. I don't think they're necessarily in final form yet. So with your indulgence, I suggest that we just await our next meeting for that purpose. I would entertain, I believe that among our attendees, I believe that the town manager, Mr. Dutton, is present. And if that is the case, let me just check my participants. I do believe he is here right now.
I see him.
Okay.
I see
I am here.
I would entertain a further motion to take out of order item CB, town manager goals.
I'll entertain a motion to take CB out of control, out of order, out of control.
All right.
Control. I second that motion to take that item out of order.
Thank you very much. I vote in favor. Could I have your votes, please, as well,
Yes.
Mr. Wood
Yes.
and Mr. Gallagher?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Dutton, I hope you can hear us. I want to welcome you to the meeting.
I can, thank you.
Very good. It's good to see you.
Likewise.
So we have, in our prior meetings, we've compiled a number of proposed goals. And as you know, of course, we've circulated these in recent days for your review and comment. And that's primarily what we're here to accomplish tonight. I don't know if you have a preferred procedure we should follow. What we certainly could do is to read the draft entry, or we could actually we could bring it up on the screen if you'd like.
Sure, whatever works for the committee. I'm happy to share my screen if you want. I've made a couple of minor edit suggestions, but other than that,
if you have that document ready, sure. If you would bring that up, I'd be happy to have you do that.
Okay, let's see if I can make sure I share the right screen. There we go. So I think this is the red line. Oh, I'm sorry. There we go. Now you should be able to see it. What do you, yeah, you should be able to see that.
Okay. Can everyone else see that as well?
Yep.
Okay. Perfect.
Without going through everything one by one, because I think this is, everybody, recognizes as do I. But I'm perfectly fine with the edits I think that were made with obviously some thought and care. I think that's appropriate on the 1.05, identifying grant funding possibilities and other financing opportunities for the old town hall. Absolutely. Central Fire Station, we are into that, so I think that's a one I probably should have drafted myself, and I don't know why I didn't, but that's perfectly fine. The memorial building, so there was no problem keeping the council all up to speed on the progress of the memorial building. I just wanted to point out that we're actually at the point where we are finalizing the construction documents now, and that is in the works. And I think, you know, the council has heard you know, what it's going to be. I'll certainly be happy to come back and bring the architect back to the council just to once the documents are complete before it goes out to bid. But I didn't want to leave the impression that, you know, that there were still changes to be made in that plan. I think we finalized that plan, but that's the only piece I would add there. And then I just rephrased the passive rec assets a little bit. And I just made a note, it is, you know, providing budgetary support, you know, always assumes that there's available funds to do that. But I do think probably a better way to phrase it would be just for me to compile an operational and capital budget to address the passive and recreational assets, parklands, and then trail demarcation, so on and so on. So I think those were the only two areas where I really, you know, just made some wording changes, but otherwise I'm fine. I'm fine with that.
Okay. Then I think if you have no immediate comments at this point further, I think I would turn it over to any questions that might arise from the other members of the committee. Is anyone care to
Yeah,
ask? Go right ahead, Bill.
thank you. Can you scroll back up, Michael, to the town hall again? We spent some time last week talking about this. So, yeah, so begin implementation of the feasibility study of the recommendation for the town hall. So what I said last week, I don't know if you heard the meeting from last week.
Unfortunately, I haven't had a chance. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. I thought for the most part, the cultural council was coming up with recommendations. So the question here is, and I think it's justified to keep this in as a goal, but in terms of measuring it and controlling it and anything related to the project itself, what piece is yours, what piece is the cultural council's, so that you actually have some piece of responsibility for implementation of the feasibility study?
That's a great question. So the Cultural Council, and we also put together a small ad hoc committee to look at this as well. So between the two of those committees, I think they are designed to make recommendations. So the use of town hall is going to be a outside typical municipal use of a municipal building. So at least that's what I'm projecting and assuming. So I think in this case, it's really the council that's going to make the final decision on the use of that building. And so the cultural council, which has an advisory role, and then the ad hoc committee has an advisory role here, I think both come back to me and then by extension back to the council with a recommendation. I suspect the first recommendation will be to adopt the feasibility study, and then then the second recommendation will be to fund the little bit of money that we're going to have to fund to come up with the design changes to the building, whatever that may be. So I think both of those come back to the council directly. I don't think the cultural council actually makes a decision.
Okay. Okay. I'm fine with the goal as it is, and if you're fine with it.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Couple questions.
Yes, Dennis, please.
Yeah, just a couple questions, Michael, and a comment. I mean, the purpose of what we're trying to do here is understanding that we're kind of in a very tight window because we have about, I'd say, 6 months before we start evaluating you again. Is we wanted to try to hone in on some specific ones and not have too many, because between what you submitted and some of the counselors, it would have been just too much. So we're really trying to focus on some, some hot button items, some things out there that we can just at least get a grasp on. Okay, this is what we've got. This is what we want to do. Understanding funding may never come, and that's not on you. That's on the council or the fact we don't have the money to do it. But to have a written plan to say, this is what we want to do with the park systems. This is what we want to do with the memorial building and the town hall and so forth. And hopefully at that point you prioritize and say, okay, we can't fund everything. We do this year, this next year. So that's the point of what we're trying to do. I don't want to see 30 different goals and objectives sent to you that are going to take years to complete. I mean, we just want to try to hone in on a few. The one question, the other thing too that I wanted to bring up, Fred, under 1.06, the fire station, I thought we were going to put in there also what the plan would be for the current fire station. I mean, I suspect we're not going to, I suspect the proposal from the committee will not be to build a new fire station where the current fire station is, but maybe, I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen.
Doubtful.
If not, then I think we need to, before rumors start flying out there, what are we going to do with the current fire station? Can it be salvaged? Is it going to be torn down? Is it going to be just an open area to lead into the town parking lot? I don't know, but I'd like to see ideas or recommendations on what should become of the old fire station building as part of wherever the new central fire station goes.
And Michael has just made the edit to make reference to the need for recommendations. I was just going to mention briefly, Dennis, that I think that my assumption, which admittedly is only that, but has always been that the site, because it is subject to the opportunity zone, that the site would be raised. That may or may not occur, but you raise a good point, and I think that having a specific recommendation for the building as it stands now, I think, is important to also have.
Yeah, those are my comments. I just think that we can't be throwing too many things at the town manager on this review because there's a fairly short window. So we really need to focus on some hot button items and some things that are doable and so forth.
Dennis, you can see what the town manager wrote, right? Because I think I'm good with that. I think I'm good with that as language. Fred, can we go back?
I'll go right ahead.
Dennis brought up the opportunity zone. I did want to come back to 101. So for clarity, so Michael and I and a couple others in town have been chatting a little bit about opportunity zone, what it means, and that sort of thing. So I just want to be clear, Michael, on what what we could expect from a conceptual plan for the opportunity zone, given what I've said in the past about the tax pieces and outside people participating in events that are really outside of our control.
So I think that's a good question, because it is largely, you know, how people avail themselves of the opportunity zone is completely outside for the most part, completely outside our control. And the major factors obviously being the capital gain, you know, the accrued capital gain that people have that they haven't realized, and how they choose to use that. So that's all complete private sector. The one thing that we can do is be very clear and certain about, excuse me, about our zoning process and what zoning actually allows. So I think a conceptual plan is going to include things like you know, some sort of expedited permitting process, and I don't use that in the technical sense, but in the more practical sense. I think it's going to include, you know, how many, you know, what the potential number of residential units that property could have, given, you know, certain things. Also include what's required, commercial on the first floor. Also, we have had some initial discussions about whether or not it would be wise to take town-owned property that abuts the commercial, you know, the commercial stretch on Central Square there, and allow developers to purchase parking spaces in our current parking lot, or allow and finance a you know, a 2-story or 3-story parking garage, which they can buy into. And the reason being, one of the things that hampers development in that strip is parking. So, you know, if we have a parking requirement, nobody can meet the parking requirements. So nobody is going to come in and propose, you know, you know, some rebuilding or complete renovation of any of those buildings, because they can't meet the parking requirements in order to you know, to meet zoning. So you know, those are the kinds of things that we have to talk through a little bit more in order to really get to the point where we've got, you know, a potential conceptual plan for that stretch. I don't think the plan would include, you know, specific business use, specific, you know, we wouldn't be trying to design a project for anybody. I think just being very clear to the outside world about what the potential is, what the process is, and what the possibility of parking, you know, the purchasing of parking, however that works out, are the things that would be in that kind of plan.
So I don't have suggested language, but I do have, and maybe we can come up with language here that makes sense. But I think if we take the approach that the city of Lowell took, if you look to them as an example, they put together a marketing package that fully described the opportunity zone. And then they put together at least a couple informational sessions, because you need to have 2 people interested. One is a seller within the zone, and one is a buyer who's buying through the mechanism. So we have to have educational opportunities for both of those parties, because the town doesn't get involved in that process, but we can educate people about what that process is. And then like Lowell did, have a marketing aspect to it that tries to find, you know, investors or investment pools, as well as educating the people within the zone what it really means and what they would need to do. Because basically, someone has to sell a piece of property for this to work. And so if no one does that to a qualified fund, then it isn't really part of the opportunity zone tax treatment, right? So
Right.
Those I don't know how to change the language if that's what we want to do. You know, complete a you know, conceptual plan is okay, but maybe a marketing plan for the opportunity zone is a little closer to what we need. I don't know. Dennis, Fred, what do you think?
If, and the edit has been included, conceptual and marketing plan. Just on that point, Mr. Dutton, are you aware, is that something that is already in some stage of development? I don't know if that's something that the economic development director might already have embarked upon.
Yeah, I will tell you, we don't have, we certainly don't have a plan. We've begun discussions around, the process to get to a plan, quite frankly. The challenging thing here is getting buy-in, and I think I may have mentioned this to a couple of you before, but I think the challenge, a lot of the challenge in the downtown area is getting obviously the council has to buy in on some level. The planning board has to participate on some level and buy in on some level, because ultimately any development that comes to the opportunity zone is going to require planning board approval. So getting some consensus about what should be there and what could be there and what makes financial sense. We don't try to always figure out what makes financial sense, but I think if we want some quality redevelopment there, we've got to really analyze what makes financial sense for a potential developer to come in and do a good job there. So that's, those are all pieces that we're going to have to dig into more. We've dug into some of that, but we're going to have to dig into that a lot more to get to the point where we can actually have a conceptual plan.
Okay, thank you for that. I was hoping to call your attention just briefly to item 1.09.
Which
I
maybe,
guess I'm sorry, that's been renumbered. It's 1.08 now, the edits you've made. So we had considerable discussion about the need for some enhanced communication. And this is the goal that we chose to set forth for you to consider. And we settled finally on a periodic bi-weekly basis. And I thought, that seemed to me, and I think to the committee overall, to be a good compromise. There was one proposal that it be a weekly summary provided to us, and we went back and forth on some of the other ideas, but we thought bi-weekly made a lot of sense, and we thought that it could be integrated with the existing town council meeting schedule. And Bill, I don't know if that's something you just want to spend a minute to address. I know you had this idea mapped out.
thanks. So in our cadence for the town council meetings, we meet on a Tuesday. The package comes out the preceding Friday. Preceding. Our deadline for submission is Wednesday at 10 a.m. So what I was mentioning last week, if we could have a town manager's report the Friday before that Wednesday deadline, that gives people enough time to come up with items for the town manager's report where they want to follow up on items. And so that would still stick to a 2 per month, and it would be the Friday before the Wednesday deadline, so that, we have all weekend and a couple days to come up with topics for the agenda. That's what I was suggesting.
I think that makes sense. Quite honestly, I for the first few years I did, quite an extensive report, and as time went by, it became less frequent, and it's just a matter of time of trying to allocate the time it takes to compile a report. So I think I've got a better way to do it. It may not be as grammatically correct and eloquent as my usual reports, but I think just getting the information out and the status of where things are. I think we can get back to that and do that in a pretty consistent way. So So the Wednesday, the Friday before the
Friday
Wednesday
before the
deadline.
Wednesday before.
Yeah. I think that works.
You have the edit control. You want to just put that into the text there?
Oh, sure. Never had this much control.
Replace the bi-weekly basis, something like that. I'm not a keyboard, so I can't wordsmith as easily as I usually can.
So basically, we want it the Friday after a council meeting.
Well, yeah, weeks
most
we
part.
miss. We have weeks.
Oh, yeah, then
we
there's those
miss, and
3
that's-
weeks. Yeah, then,
Yeah. The Friday before the Wednesday agenda deadline.
Wednesday agenda deadline.
Yeah, that way it stays flexible and
What's this, a manner in which to be agreed to? A manner
right.
to be agreed on. How else are we gonna mail it? You gonna mail it to?
I've got a flock of pigeons.
Yeah. Oh, drone it to our houses, yeah.
That's next. Is that what you were referring to? In a manner, meaning
That's
time?
really it.
Okay.
It was to kind of nail down the period of time and
Yeah.
how it would be disseminated.
All right, that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay.
yes. Yep, thank you.
Is there other input or questions from the council members?
I think we've honed in on some specifics and some of the hot button issues that are in our town right now. So I'm comfortable with the progress we've made to submit to the council for full.
Yep.
Bill, do you have anything to add?
No, I think I'm good on all the changes we talked about.
Thank you. I think, as you could see, Mr. Dutton, the real overriding concerns that we try to address by our comments and additional proposed goals for you. We really had two overriding concerns. One being the development of the central business district. The redevelopment, if you will, and certainly also the ever-present issue of attracting new business to the town and helping existing businesses to in any way that we can. And I think that what we've tried to do is to kind of hit upon those high notes in our proposals to you, and I'm very glad to see that you've acknowledged them and agreed.
I think that I appreciate the council's or the committee's work here, because I do think it makes sense. I do appreciate Dennis's point about not about trying to stay within the realm of what's realistic. This is I'll tell you, this is challenging, and it'll be all hands on deck. And you're right, we've got a shortened window, and that's fine. Most of this is most of it, not all, are things that we've been working on over a period of time. So we're not far off, but some of them will require a lot of work. But I'd rather have challenging goals. Maybe that's crazy of me. I'd rather have stretch goals and really try to reach them than have uninspiring goals and not care. So I think I appreciate the work you did. I think it's pretty much spot on.
If I would, if the council members are in agreement, I was considering, because we have just two members of the public in attendance, and I was considering giving them an opportunity to provide input at this time in our public comment session. Is that generally agreeable with you each?
Fine,
Yes.
good.
All right. Then what I will do is I will attempt to acknowledge them, to invite the public to comment. Please keep your comments brief. We generally try to adhere to that 3-minute rule that the council generally observes. If I may, I'll ask for comments from Mrs. Hanson, if you are still with us and if you care to comment. I'd like to give you an opportunity now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Janet Hanson, Pleasant Street. Thank you. This is again, I'm just learning about your meetings, so I'm not that familiar with a lot of some of the terms. I was interested in what the opportunity zone entails, but I hear some of the comments and I know, everybody wants to promote business and everything in Bridgewater, but I just want to be mindful of not creating downtown to be a city. It's a lot of people that have left the city. They like the center of town. I know there's some things that need to be tweaked down there, but I would like to, and I'm trying to think of the right wording for it, but I'd like to have it, keep the quaintness, family oriented, if you kind of know what I'm getting at, without making it turn into a city. And Mr. Wood has brought up today and some other times about comparing or looking at Lowell, which can be so far from what our town is. And I know it's considered a city, but that's only because of the government. And also looking at Brockton. I don't want us to turn into Brockton. I don't want the center of town turning into Brockton. So I hope that is mindful in decisions. And I just had a question. You were talking about the current fire station downtown. I was just wondering if that's in the historic portion part of town. Is that considered a historic building? So would that inhibit from doing anything to that building? If it was torn down, kind of sad to see if it was torn down, but if it was torn down, I think the best use of that land would be making it into a parking lot, and not building something else. So that's the comments I have right now. And I'm just trying to understand what the opportunity zone really means. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's Dr. Hunt, if you're still with us, would you care to offer any comment?
No, I think these, no real comments. If I were wordsmithing, I'd wordsmith a lot, but I think that I think having stretch goals and having reporting on the progress on a biweekly, or I would set it at a monthly basis, but biweekly since you're 6 months out, I think that's a really strong piece to have that reporting done. So that's all the comments I have. I did notice that there was another goal that hadn't been talked about. There's number 2.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. I just noticed that Pat Neary has joined the meeting, and Pat, if you can hear me, we're in the midst of the public comment section. So I don't know if you have any public comment you'd care to make at this point, but you're welcome to if you choose.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I just tuned in, so I can't make a public comment.
Okay. All right. I think there being no further public input, we'll close that section of our meeting tonight, and we can move on if there is any willingness to do so. One other item on our agenda that we had moved is the item CA, the charter of the planning committee, strategic planning committee. And I don't know if there is, well, let me ask this way. Is there any input that either of the members would care to share on that topic, or shall we move that to a future meeting?
Before we go there, I have a question. So, so returning back to the goals themselves, are we ready at this point to, with the edits, do we need another session before we take them back to council? Or are we ready to take action to make a recommendation at this point?
Well, I think that we should consider any motions that you would care to advance in that regard. If you'd care to propose a motion for the acceptance of the edits as we now have them before us, we can plan to then move that directly to the council for next week's meeting.
So I'll just take an informal question to Dennis. Are you happy with what you've seen, or?
Yes, I'm comfortable. I have no problem with forwarding it to the council for full discussion. Just if we could get a clean copy, sent to us, that would be nice. But yes, I have no issues.
Yeah, so I think we've discussed all the amendments. So I'll make the motion to return it back to the full council with our recommendation for the amendments as discussed.
And I'll second that. Yeah.
And if we could have a roll call vote, Dennis?
Yes.
Thank you. And Councillor Wood?
Yes.
Thank you. And I vote yes as well. We will advance that to the town council. I think it will be there for its for our meeting on this coming Tuesday.
So going back to your question on the charter, as I said last week, I'm satisfied with that. With the shape that it's taken, it looks pretty good. Now we didn't have a formal request to come up with a charter or anything like that. So I think at this point, my suggestion would be maybe ask for a discussion item on that, because we could broaden the discussion item to, what is the role of all the subjects, and use this as an example of maybe charter is the wrong word, but mission statement for the committee. So that we show an example, and then maybe figure out if we want to have a formal process. Because I don't know if it needs to be in the admin code or in our own rules and procedures, but maybe as a document of the town council in some form.
I think we can simply say, we're ready to submit something. I like what you put together, Fred. I'm comfortable with that, but I think a discussion amongst the counselors would be fine to say, should we have a mission statement, and should the committee come up with their mission statement and bring it back to the council for approval or adoption, or should the discussion on a mission statement be at the council meeting for committees, something like that.
And I could see this fitting into our rules, our council rules, probably not anywhere else. But that'd be good if we could have that discussion at the council level.
All right, then we will propose it for discussion at the next meeting, council meeting. And we're not seeking specific approval, but as you've mentioned, we can simply cite it as an example of something and raise the larger question. So I think that's appropriate.
Okay.
Very good.
If we need a formal motion, that sounds fine.
Yeah.
All right.
So you can do that.
Do we have any further business? I believe not.
What's the future initiatives? You have that on there.
We have that as a kind of a standing item in our agenda.
Yeah.
And Bill, would you like to?
I'd ask because it's a placeholder, because you can't discuss things that aren't on the agenda. So it's a placeholder for us if we wanted to become, show some initiative and talk about things that we might recommend that our committee do. Of course, everything, and I believe this too, everything needs to originate from the council as an assignment to the committees. I don't want the committees to generate their own work, but it's a discussion point that we could use to talk about things that our committee might do in the future in terms of work, and we can bring that back to the committee.
Sure. Sounds
I
good.
don't have anything left because we covered the goals and mission statement. And I think that's about the extent of the work we have right now.
Oh, very good. If there is no more business, I would entertain a motion, but firstly, I would like to just thank those in attendance and of course, particularly Mr. Dutton for your responsive work in reviewing and commenting on the proposed goals. And we appreciate all of your input and look forward to working with you for achievement of those goals.
So,
Likewise.
Can I make one more quick comment? And this
Yes.
is just about the opportunity zone since we have some visitors here. So you can do some research. The opportunity zone is fully described on the mass.gov website. And there, if you just simply search on opportunity zone, you'll see that Bridgewater has a section of town that basically starts on the east side of the common and stretches down into BSU. So it covers a number of streets and whatnot. It then goes on to describe what an opportunity zone is and leads you to an IRS regulation. And the IRS regulation is the key here because it's a tax treatment where someone can sell property and defer their capital gains up until 2026 if they invest those capital gains into another project. And the other project has to be an investment into the opportunity zone, and it's done through almost like a trust mechanism. So it's fully described there. I was using Lowell as an example because Lowell put together a marketing package to bring together the people who are in their opportunity zone with potential developers to try to do that matchmaking there. So they had a pretty good, it isn't about building a Lowell or anything like that. It was just an example of the marketing that and presentations that they did for the neighborhoods and the developers. Thank you. That's it.
I
Well-
move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Wonderful. And we'll have a roll call vote. And we'll start with Mr. Wood,
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. So we will adjourn our meeting. The time is 7:46. And I just want to express thanks once again to all of you. Have
See
a
you
great
Thank
evening.
you.
Thanks.
See you Tuesday night.
Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye.